Hello and welcome back to your favorite podcast. My name, like always, is Deanna Jackson, and you are listening to my podcast with no title, because here we talk about anything and everything. I have my computer open and ready in front of me so I can read all of your posts and discussions that were on our Facebook page regarding last week's discussion. So, last week, we had an amazing discussion about the awesome new Netflix series called Zero. I had opened the discussion to our Facebook page after we aired the episode, and I am surprised with the amount of positive feedback the show is receiving from all of you. Shocked. So, just a quick recap for those who have not had the chance to view last week's episode, which you definitely should do. Just saying. Anyways, last week was about the series Zero, where the main character has a superpower of invisibility. I just want to say that after looking at everyone's posts on our page, you all had some important deep connections expressed between the superpower and the black individual. It was really eye-opening, and at the end, as a result, we are going to discuss a topic along the same lines, considering last week was so popular. So, for this week's topic, one of our followers suggested that we talk about double consciousness. By the way, if you are not doing so already, make sure that you are subscribed to this podcast wherever you listen to your podcast so that you never miss an episode. Yes, you. Go check now and make sure that you're subscribed. Did you do it? Good. Okay, so now we can start. Go ahead and grab your cat, grab your dog, grab your snacks, really anything you need to get comfortable so I can start. Ready? Good. So back to the topic, double consciousness. So what is double consciousness? Who invented it? How is it a part of the everyday lives of everyday individuals? Even some, if not all of you, amazing individuals listening. So these are all questions that will be answered and more as we dive deeper into this week's topic. So I just want to get something out there, just so I don't offend anyone. I myself experienced double consciousness, and I would like to state, for the record, okay, that this is a reflective podcast and a safe space for individuals who wish to share their experiences. They can do so freely and without judgment, okay? Even on our Facebook page, we don't condone the judgment and hate speech of others, okay? I also do not intend to speak for any of those who are perfectly capable of speaking for themselves, okay? So now that's out of the way, I'd like to first explain what double consciousness is. So according to a man named W.E.B. Du Bois, who introduced the term into social and political thought in his 1903 work titled The Souls of Black Folk. It is, and I quote, a concept in social philosophy referring originally to a source of inward two-ness experienced by African Americans because of their racialized oppression and their disvaluation in a white-dominated society. Okay? So, moving on. So yesterday, my producer, Jeremy, love you, Jeremy, thank you, posed a question to our Facebook page asking people to share their experience with double consciousness if they have, experienced it. And I am overwhelmed with the amount of responses, okay? You guys are amazing. After reading the posts you have made in response to the question, I'm aware that this is something that many individuals experience, especially immigrants and the children of immigrants and the children of the immigrants. And it's not just based on Black individuals as well. We have stories of people from, Italy who have immigrated to Canada and they still feel this two-ness. Like, for example, my grandmother feels this two-ness. She goes, I moved to Canada, but Italy is still a huge part of who I am. Even though she moved here at, I think it was it's 54 years this year, which is wow. So I was scrolling the internet looking for any experiences of, others and any extra information I could find, of course, out of my own curiosity, and I found two things. The first is about a person's experience, and the second, well, it's also about a person's experience, but it's also within an essay written by an amazing individual named Camilla Hawthorne, okay? This essay is definitely worth reading. So the first text is what I would like to talk about. The first text is titled, wait for it, Sausages. I know, funny name. To be honest with you all, that's what drew me into this lovely text. So the text is written in first person. It is about an individual who is Muslim, and she went to the store to purchase some classic sausages. She is an Italian citizen, and she immigrated there a little while back. She, after buying these sausages, she arrives at home with her sausages and says, and I quote this from the text, is it really worth it if I swallow these sausages one by one? Will people understand that I am just Italian, just like them? So I'm sitting here reading this heartbreaking statement after reading about how when this woman was younger, she accidentally ate small pieces of hot dog and needed to throw them up due to religious reasons. So I think it's just heartbreaking because the act of eating the sausages can symbolize the line that one feels through the pressure of society that they need to cross even just to have a chance of being accepted by the prejudiced white Italian community to be considered one of them. So it's ridiculous. And later in the text, the woman describes a situation in which she was asked a terrible question. The question was, along the lines of, which do you love more, Somalia or Italy? And then this is also creating a division between the person's identity. Then another variation of the question was asked, which was, do you feel more Italian or more Somali? Okay, so I want to share my personal experience with this. Okay, I am Australian, I am Italian, and I am Canadian. I am constantly feeling the push and pull by the different parts that make me who I am. I have been asked by some at times which part of me I love most, just like this woman from the sausages text. We both came to the conclusion, her and myself, that there is not one that we could love over the other. Although there are others who flip back and forth, as I once did, from one extreme to the next. Okay, and I want to bring up a quote from the essay from Camilla Hawthorne. So on page 160 of this essay, a founding member of a blog known as Afro-Italian Souls says, "For me, I grew up seeing myself only as Italian. I knew that I was African, but I was Italian, period. Because a few Africans I saw outside of my family were not regarded well. So I grew up saying, I am Italian, you are African. We're not the same. Then I went to Uganda, and I fell in love with my country. And I thought, wow, I didn't realize that I was always missing something. When I came back here, I thought to myself, geez, I'm also Italian. Then when I had trouble getting Italian citizenship, I said, well, who cares about those Italians? I'm also African. Then I decided from that day I was only African. I went from one extreme to the other because I thought to myself, I was born and raised here. Why don't they consider me to be Italian? Why do I have to go through this whole hassle with citizenship? Now, however, I'm finding a balance. The fact that Italians don't accept me doesn't mean that I have to stop seeing myself as Italian. I am in awe, just at reading this, knowing that some individuals experience double consciousness to such a degree as this. I did have an experience like this, but I'm still struggling with it. Alrighty, so after reading that and after going through that little bit, I just want to offer you guys a moment to pause the podcast, take a moment to digest what we've discussed. If you'd like to go grab some more snacks, refill your drinks, go to the bathroom if you need to, take a minute, and you can come right back. Yay! Thank you for returning. Let's get back into it. You know, talking about this, I want to segue into another factor that causes one to experience double consciousness. This related to how people might look. When I looked deeper into what Du Bois meant by double consciousness, I found an article he published in a magazine called The Atlantic from 1897. Part of this article I'd like to highlight. Keep in mind that this quote specifically talks about the Black experience, but I'm not only talking about the experience of the Black body in today's podcast, like I've mentioned previously. So, it says, and I quote, "It is a particular sensation, this double consciousness, this sense of always looking at oneself through the eyes of others." Keep in mind that's important. "Of measuring one's soul by the tape of a world that looks on in amused contempt and pity. One ever feels his two-ness, an American, a Negro, two souls, two thoughts, two unreconciled strivings, two unwearying ideals in one dark body." That's a strong quote. I just want to highlight that double consciousness talks about viewing oneself through the eyes of others. Like, I paused in the middle of reading the quote to highlight. So, this was seen in the quote that I pulled from Sausages, that article, as well as that was written by Hawthorne. Before I go on, I just want to discuss this a bit. I want to share a personal story, because this is a safe place. So if you know me, like in person, and you have seen me, like in pictures of when I was a kid, you can see that, like, I have eyes that are typically those belonging to someone in the Asian community. All this considered, I am part Australian, part Italian, and part Canadian, so my family makes jokes about where I could have inherited these small eyes from. But anyways, not to get off track, once when I entered a doctor's office with my mom, this was when I was younger, the receptionist at the time asked my mom, "Oh, hello, is she one of us?" My mom talked to the lady and found out that her family immigrated from China to come to Canada. Hearing this story from my mom, I had to think back, and I looked inward at, myself after hearing the way others interpreted my appearance and tried to categorize me. I have found that in my many years on this earth, people have moments of self-reflection brought on by the actions of others, and personally, these actions of others are those that we don't tend to forget, because it was an important eureka moment, right? It was because of my outward appearance that brought on this moment of self-reflection that continues even today, of striving to discover who I am. Unlike the individual from the Hawthorne essay, I have not been as fortunate as to find a balance between the different parts that make up, me. And there's a lot to digest here. Okay, so as this episode comes to an end, sadly, I have a few questions that I would like to pose to my listeners. So the questions are, do you believe that even those who are not only immigrants, or the generations that follow these immigrants, of people, if people born to different religions also experience this identity crisis that comes from double consciousness, where, for example, you have somebody born to a Jewish mother and a Christian father. Do you feel pulled? Because I didn't get any of these messages when my producer posed that question on Facebook. I want to see if anybody has stories like this that we can talk about next week. So another question is if you believe that society is set up to where immigrants are pushed into believing that they are two separate parts when they immigrate from one country to another. So like when people go to Italy, is it not part of being Italian or being Canadian or being whatever country that you are now a part of, to be allowed and accepted to be a mix of different components? Is that not what makes up who you are? You shouldn't have to choose between one or the other. I just want to know if that's not what part of being, Italian or Canadian or whatever is. Also, just to end off the podcast, thank you all for listening. I want you all to feel free to write us on Facebook at the podcast with no name. Again, that is at THEPODCASTWITHNONAME on Facebook. We're also on Twitter and Instagram, and I cannot wait for next week's topic. So stay safe. Thank you for joining me. Podcast